This is Part 2 Episode 128. In this moment, Hu Yuhao felt as if the icy spring water around him had already reached absolute zero. The extremely low temperatures were starting to make his body go numb. However, the soul power within his body was greedily absorbing that extreme chill. Whoosh! Hu Yuhao's body suddenly lightened, and he suddenly felt the pressure around him plummet as he fell into a small cave. Everything was completely dark inside the cave, but there wasn't any spring water at all. Hu Yuhao almost subconsciously opened his mouth to breathe. A wave of terrifying and chilly air followed his breath into his body. In that moment, Hu Yuhao felt as if everything, including his own spirit, had frozen. His entire body went stiff as he just stood there, motionless. Hu Yuhao thought that he had a very deep understanding of the element of ice, but only in this moment did he truly understand that everything that he knew was insufficient. At least, he had never believed that ice could cause even spirits to freeze. Was this the true element of ice? His eye of destiny opened on his forehead. The deep, profound, and tranquil vertical eye opened as the soul core in his body rotated hysterically. Tremendous spiritual power rippled outward and forcefully helped Hu Yuhao's spirit struggle out from the icy rigidness. Bluish-green light glowed in front of him at the same time. The Ice Empress hovered in front of him quietly, and Hu Yuhao could finally see everything around him with clarity. He was inside a very small cave. It was only about 10 square meters, and about 1.5 meters high. Hu Yuhao had to come inside with his body bent down. There were strange pillars of ice inside the cave. There were more than 10 of various sizes, some big and some small, and they were all intertwined with each other. Every pillar was white, and they were still white and clean even when the Ice Empress bluish-green light shone on them. Liquid seemed to flow within those white, icy pillars. The frightening chill came from these icy pillars. The extreme cold here was different from that contained inside the divine ice crystals. The cold here couldn't be contained, and even the air seemed to be sticky. The elements of ice were so thick here that even Hu Yuhao couldn't absorb them, and only the Ice Empress, the Snow Empress, the Star Anise, or other spirits like them wouldn't be too affected in such an environment. That wasn't because they were in spiritual form, but because their original bodies were formed from ultimate ice. We are here. This is the manifold mysterious ice essence. The Ice Empress spoke with much sorrow. The manifold mysterious ice essence. Hu Yuhao's spirits were rekindled when he heard those words. Hu Yuhao couldn't move at all, and his entire body seemed like it was frozen. However, with his soul core helping him, his thoughts and spirit were very normal. The Ice Empress said, "Don't worry, Yuhao. You're just not used to the extreme cold in this place. The area here is too small, and there is too much manifold mysterious ice essence, and that's the reason why the temperature is so low. The temperature here is about 5 degrees from absolute zero. Even though these 5 degrees are still calamities, this is the lowest temperature I have ever come across." Thoughts spun in Hu Yuhao's head as he turned to the Ice Empress and asked, "Does that mean our ultimate ice isn't absolute zero?" The Ice Empress shook her head and said, "Of course not. Temperatures can be considered at the extremes, when they are 150 degrees below zero. That is already a range forbidden to life. However, that threshold is still quite far from absolute zero. But this place is different. This place is truly a place with a temperature close to absolute zero. There isn't as much manifold mysterious ice essence as the place that the Skydream iceworm discovered by chance, but the space here is small, and the cold air cannot be released outside. The cold air has been accumulating and trapped here. Therefore, low temperatures such as this are few and far between even in our lives. Don't do anything now, just stay here quietly, and it will be beneficial for you. We will absorb the manifold mysterious ice essence to reduce the icy air's thickness, and then you can slowly adapt. Just make sure that your mind remains clear." "All right," Hu Yuhao said nothing more. He understood what the Ice Empress was saying, that he had to feel and experience more of a place like this that hardly ever occurred in the world, if at all. It would be very beneficial for his cultivation with ultimate ice. Hu Yuhao concentrated his spiritual power, and began to quietly feel everything around him. Even though his body was frozen, there was an icy blue layer around his body that was protecting him. Hu Yuhao's martial soul had ultimate ice, and he couldn't be frozen to death. The only problem was that the chilly air here was too strong, and he didn't know how to deal with it yet. Light flickered as the Skydream Iceworm emerged from Hu Yuhao's body. Even though the Skydream Iceworm didn't originally have ultimate ice, he was undoubtedly one of the most experienced in dealing with manifold mysterious ice essence. What do you plan to do? The Skydream Iceworm asked the Ice Empress. Their consciousnesses were the most intact amongst Hu Yuhao's four spirits. The star anise was similar, but it was a plant-type soul beast, and it only had 100,000 years of cultivation, so its intelligence was relatively lower. The Snow Empress memories were sealed after she became Hu Yuhao's spirit, so she couldn't help them make a decision. The Ice Empress lowered her voice and said, "We are without our bodies. However, the manifold mysterious ice essence is the purest and most valuable treasure for our elements of ice. We may be able to recreate our bodies if we use this ice essence as materials and absorb them through our origin energy. These bodies will still be based on energy, but if our fusion is to be successful, we will be able to leave Yuhao for a certain distance in the future and still be able to live. At the same time, if anything happens to Yuhao, we can still." She paused here and glanced at Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao passed his message with his thoughts. "Can what?" The Ice Empress took a deep breath and spoke with radiating eyes that were trained on him. "We can leave you, and we can find another person who can help us attain eternity. With the manifold mysterious ice essence, our spiritual origins can possess a vessel that isn't so easily dissipated." Hu Yuhao said, "That's great. That is a good thing. Hurry up and absorb it." The Skydream Iceworm's eyes became a lot deeper than before. "That's not good." The Ice Empress stared at him coldly and said, "What's not good?" The Skydream Iceworm frowned. "I can understand what you are feeling. However, since we have chosen to follow Yuhao from the beginning, we have to give our entire hearts and souls. Everyone has been through life and death struggles so many times, have you forgotten?" The Ice Empress paused momentarily and said, "I just wish to use the manifold mysterious ice essence to strengthen my origin, so that my spiritual origin can rely on something." "What's wrong with that?" The Skydream Iceworm shook his head. "No, that's not all you are thinking of. I understand that you want to try to recreate your physical body with all this manifold mysterious ice essence. I can tell you two things first, you can't possibly do that. This ice essence is a very valuable ice-type treasure, but there isn't enough here for you to recreate your physical body. How can you recreate your body without any dependence? Secondly, even if you manage to do that, you will no longer be with us. I understand how you feel about seeing all this manifold mysterious ice essence, but I have to stop you. This is not our path. Have you not seen hope in Yuhao? Since we already have hope, why do you have to take this risk?" The Ice Empress retorted defiantly, "I didn't think of hurting him. I just..." The Skydream Iceworm's voice suddenly became very severe. "Shut up. I know you never wished to harm him, but why didn't you tell him that he would have to sustain such enormous pressure in the process of coming in? You didn't want him to stop you after coming here. Absorbing the manifold mysterious ice essence to strengthen your own body is all right, but I'm afraid that your mentality will become unstable. Don't take the wrong path." The Ice Empress fell silent. Even though she didn't want to admit it, she understood that the Skydream Iceworm was telling the truth. The manifold mysterious ice essence had caused a ripple in her heart that had always been calm, and she felt as if she had seen hope. She had never fused with a treasure such as this before, but she held on to that tiny thread of hope, that she could use it to try and recreate her physical body. She did see hope by following Hu Yuhao, but she craved freedom more. "Brother Skydream," Hu Yuhao called out. The Skydream Iceworm turned around and looked at Hu Yuhao with an apologetic look on his face. "I'm sorry, Yuhao. She didn't do it intentionally. The manifold mysterious ice essence is unimaginably alluring to any ice-type soul beast. I understand. I don't blame her," Hu Yuhao continued. "I understand the value of freedom. Brother Skydream, I called you because I wanted to ask if I can truly help you guys recreate your physical bodies by leveraging the manifold mysterious ice essence, or rather, by using it as the main material. If that's possible, I am willing to help you. Really? I don't mind even if you absorb every single inch of the ice essence here. The Sky Dream Iceworm frowned even more tightly. What do you mean, Yu Hao? Hui Yu Hao smiled and said, Brother Sky Dream, Ice Empress, I've always known that you guys have high expectations and hopes on me, and this expectation has been an enormous burden for me. If you guys can recreate your physical bodies, then this burden will naturally disappear. I can do some things that I wish to do with a lightened heart. You guys don't have to worry about anything, my spirit eyes have grown, and even if the Ice Empress leaves me and takes my second martial soul, that's not a big deal. I am very clear about how valuable freedom is. Therefore, if you have a solution to this, Brother Sky Dream, please help the Ice Empress and yourself. There will be no problem if the Snow Empress can awaken because of this. The original rationale of becoming my spirits was to live better lives. Since you guys have this opportunity, why are you giving it up? The Sky Dream Iceworm's knotted eyebrows relaxed, but his expression became one of astonishment. He could tell that Hui Yu Hao's words were very sincere, and there wasn't a single trace of sarcasm. The Ice Empress stared at Hui Yu Hao with a blank look on her face, and she seemed a little lost. Hui Yu Hao heaved a faint sigh and said, I have always had 3 wishes. My first wish is to avenge my mother, and for everybody who hurt her to pay. This is my duty as a son. My second wish is to find Donga again, so that we can be together, and that is for my own happiness. My third wish is to help you guys live on, and in a better life. You guys are the reason why I have achieved everything that I have, and to me, you are both teachers and friends. The only responsibility that remains after I have completed these 3 wishes will be to fight for Shrek and the Tang sect. I truly wish to see my 3 wishes fulfilled. Therefore, Brother Sky Dream, every one of you can leave if you are able to. I will not be upset at all. I only wish that we can still be friends afterwards. The Sky Dream Iceworm's voice became a little lower. But you know that if we leave you, perhaps what we have fused with you will remain in your body, but the Ice Empress, the Snow Empress, and I will take with us all the soul skills that we have bestowed upon you. Even the soul bone that the Ice Empress has given you will disappear. Your second martial soul will likely crumble, and your Spirit Eye's 4th soul skill will vanish with me. Even though you are a soul sage, your strength will very likely plummet. Hui Yu Hao chuckled. I have considered all of that. That's not a problem, because I am not worried about all that as long as I can fulfill my 3 wishes. Brother Sky Dream, you don't have to worry for me. I am no longer the same me as I was back then. With your help, at the very least, I am still a soul sage. Furthermore, I already have my soul core. I trust that I can regain my prowess with my own abilities. Even if I only have spirit eyes, I am still quite powerful. Don't worry. The Sky Dream Iceworm sighed and turned around to look at the Ice Empress. Have you heard him? The Ice Empress nodded silently. The Sky Dream Iceworm said plainly, so what is your decision? The Ice Empress didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked the Sky Dream Iceworm a question. If I choose to leave, then what about you? Will you leave with me? The Sky Dream Iceworm shook his head almost without hesitation, as he said decisively, no, I won't. The Ice Empress frowned. But you've said before that you like me. Why aren't you willing to be with me? The Sky Dream Iceworm replied plainly, yes, I like you. No, I should say that I love you. You are one of the most important components of my life. However, Yu Hao is the same. Yes, it was because of me that Yu Hao's strength has risen so quickly. However, on the other hand, I would probably no longer exist if I hadn't run into him. We have always been relying on each other for survival and helping each other, and only then have we reached where we are today. Therefore, no matter what, whether Yu Hao will touch that level successfully in the future, I will accompany him on his path. I will always be by his side whether he is successful or not. I am his companion, and I am also his elder brother. Just as you are, he has long become one of the most important parts of my life. Yu Hao is right, he has a tremendous burden on his shoulders because of us. I trust that everything that he has said is sincere. Our departure for him might be a kind of liberation, but I will not leave, no matter what the future holds for us. I will stand with my brother. The Ice Empress' expression turned a little bitter. What about me? We both hold important places in your heart. Why won't you choose to be with me? The Sky Dream Iceworm sighed and said, how I wish I could be with you. I will wish the same in the future. However, I cannot follow you if you choose to leave. I will look for you only after I accompany Yu Hao to finish the last days of his journey. If you are still alive then, I will come to you to protect you, and to accompany you. If you are no longer there, then I will find you in another world. Even though I am very afraid of death, I have to admit that I have been alive long enough. Love and friendship cannot be had at the same time. If your choice is right, and Yu Hao's choice is not right, then I will choose you. But now, you should understand what my choice is. HMPH. The Ice Empress grunted angrily. You wait. The Sky Dream Iceworm revealed a pained smile. Perhaps this wait will bring me agony for the rest of my life. The Ice Empress stared at him coldly and said, yes, it will give you pain for the rest of your life. She turned and floated towards Yu Hao as she spoke. The Sky Dream Iceworm felt his heart skip a beat as he hurriedly followed her. The Snow Empress had lost her memory, and she only recognized Yu Hao. She immediately flew next to Yu Hao as she stared at the Ice Empress warily. The Ice Empress smiled, she stared at Yu Hao, and her smile was very happy. You are all wrong. I do want to absorb this manifold mysterious ice essence, and I have to admit that greedy thoughts did appear in my head when I saw it. I believe that is something that any ice-type soul beast cannot avoid. However, that avarice is insufficient to sway my faith. So what if I recreate my physical body? In Di Qian's life, he has cultivated for more than 800,000 years with the help of the Lake of Life, and even then, he doesn't have a single chance of touching the God Realm. The God Realm has always been very harsh and strict towards us soul beasts. However, I have truly seen hope in Yu Hao. The call from the God Realm and the formation of his soul core proves that my judgment wasn't false all those years ago. Since that's the case, why would I give up my roots to chase something so trivial? The Sky Dream Iceworm stared at her with widened eyes and slack jaw. You're not recreating your physical body anymore. The Ice Empress rolled her eyes and said, when did I say that I wish to do that? The Sky Dream Iceworm stammered, but you said that if something happens to him, you can choose another host. The Ice Empress replied, I did say that. But I was just speaking casually. Why are you so serious? Do you think I don't know how illusory recreating my physical body is? You are too tensed up. Yes, Yu Hao did sustain enormous pressure coming in here, but that pressure was within my control. If I sensed that he had reached the limits of what he could bear, I would have immediately helped him relieve that pressure. The Ice Empress green light suddenly flourished as she spoke, and the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's original form glowed behind Yu Hao's back. The chill that had been assaulting him from the beginning to the end, that had frozen him over instantly, disappeared as Yu Hao regained his senses. How can he improve without pressure? Did he not do the same to Qiuqiu? Don't you know how difficult it is to give Yu Hao pressure? This place is as suitable as it gets. This experience will be very beneficial for him when he absorbs the manifold mysterious ice essence later. However, I have to absorb at least half of the manifold mysterious ice essence here. The Ice Empress was very serious. I have never considered recreating my physical body, or to change hosts in the future. To be honest, I don't think anybody can be better than Yu Hao, and I was just commenting casually. However, such a thing is possible, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As for why I have to absorb large amounts of manifold mysterious ice essence to consolidate and strengthen my origins, the reason is simple. Why? The Sky Dream Iceworm asked. The Ice Empress rolled her eyes and said, you're such an idiot. You had nothing better to do, so you decided to help Yu Hao form his soul core with only 7 soul rings. This will allow his cultivation to increase more quickly, but have you considered that forming a second soul core is a challenge for an ultimate Doluo? He'll probably need more than 30, or even 50 years. The manifold mysterious ice essence is your great luck. The amount that he can absorb is limited, while my absorption is equivalent to his martial soul absorbing more. All this will be unleashed when he breaks through in the future, and when he is forming his second soul core. I will infuse my origin power into his body so that he has a chance at success. The Sky Dream Iceworm's jaws were still agape. Very wise. The Ice Empress shot him a disdainful glance and said, "Of course I am wise, unlike you, you're such an idiot. You hadn't even clarified anything before you came running to express your loyalty. Please, continue." The Sky Dream Iceworm gave her a sheepish look. "I was wrong, Ice Empress. I have aggrieved you." The Ice Empress laughed coldly and said, "No. Do not speak of a grievance. You're so good to Yu Hao, you guys are brothers. I am an outsider. Yu Hao is the generous one. What about you? You are projecting your own despicable thoughts to judge honest people. Leave me alone next time." "I was wrong, Ice Empress. Isn't it enough that I have apologized? I will do whatever you wish me to, my lady. I was wrong. I truly understand that I was wrong now." The Sky Dream Iceworm finally understood what the Ice Empress meant about giving him pain for the rest of his life. He finally felt it deep in his bones. Hui Yu Hao turned toward the Ice Empress with a forced laugh. "This is all just a misunderstanding, geez. I was also wrong. Everything is my fault. Don't blame Brother Sky Dream." The Sky Dream Iceworm secretly gave Hui Yu Hao a thumbs up. The Ice Empress chortled and said, "It's not so easy to toss us away, Yu Hao. You will only have motivation when there's pressure. It's fine, I don't blame you. I have always treated you like a younger brother. Furthermore, your speech just now was pretty touching. Quite unlike a certain crawling bug, heh. I was wrong." Ice Empress, the Sky Dream Iceworm hurriedly stepped forward to pull on the Ice Empress, but she shrugged him away. "That's enough, I'll deal with you later. We have to discuss this matter with the manifold mysterious ice essence. You also have to absorb some, Sky Dream, not just me. The Snow Lady and the Star Anise have to do it as well. The Snow Lady has to take more, and perhaps that will help her regain her strength. Yu Hao can only absorb a little for now. The manifold mysterious ice essence is too effective, and if you absorb too much of it, you may very well end up in a deep slumber like the Sky Dream Iceworm, all those years ago. If that happens, you may sleep for a good 10 years. I'm sure you won't want that." The Ice Empress said, "It's a lot easier for us to absorb the manifold mysterious ice essence. We are all your spirits, and our origin will absorb some of it, while more of it will be sealed into our bodies. These energies will be useful when you attempt to form your second soul core." "All right, I'll listen to you," Hui Yu Hao hurriedly responded. The Ice Empress continued, "Okay, then I shall begin, and the Snow Empress will go next, then Sky Dream, and the Star Anise goes last. You will take your turn when we finish." Hui Yu Hao nodded understandingly. The Sky Dream Iceworm stared anxiously at the Ice Empress beside her and said, "Do you need help, Ice Empress?" Scram, the Ice Empress pushed him away, as she floated before a single pillar. Intense green light lit up every corner of this tiny cavern. Every single pillar of ice essence seemed to come alive under the green luster. The Ice Empress shifted as an enormous green scorpion tail glimmered into view behind her. The shiny hook stabbed ferociously into the pillar in front of her. TCH. There was a soft sound that caused the cold air within the cavern to shake. Hui Yu Hao could clearly feel even stronger waves of cold permeate around him, but the energy undulations were also becoming stronger within all those chilly waves. However, everything happened for only an instant. Hui Yu Hao could see in the next moment that waves of dark blue liquid swiftly flowed into the Ice Empress body through the sharp hook on her tail, and she absorbed the liquid within. The Ice Empress was Hui Yu Hao's martial soul after all, and Hui Yu Hao could sense something changing once she began to absorb it. The rigid soul power within his body began to circulate once more. Furthermore, his soul power began to strengthen as the pure elements of ice immersed into his body. The Ice Empress stretched out her arms to both sides, and they transformed into two enormous pincers that waved rhythmically in the air as they carried bluish-green hues. The green lights intertwined and curved through one another in mid-air as strange bluish-green runes and glyphs took shape one after another behind her before they imprinted on her body. Hu Yuhao's soul power was increasing at a slower rate. However, the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's pattern was vividly imprinted behind his back. That wasn't all. The Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's skeleton shone lustrously. The Ice Empress' origin resided within these bones. The Ice Empress was starting to fuse with and seal away the manifold mysterious ice essence, and that essence was naturally sealed into her skeleton. The process was very quick. 15 minutes passed as the first pillar dimmed, and the liquid that was so lively and full of vitality completely disappeared. The pillar of ice essence shattered with a light pop and transformed into a mass of icy dust. The Ice Empress body evidently became much more material after fusing with this pillar. Even though it still couldn't compare to her real body, Hu Yuhao could tell that she was a lot more lively than before. Two pincers stretched out from her sides, and each clamped down on a pillar as she continued to absorb more. The Sky Dream Iceworm flew quietly behind the Ice Empress. Nobody was as experienced as he was in absorbing the manifold mysterious ice essence, and back when he had first absorbed it, he went into a deep slumber for a long time, because there was too much energy inside the ice essence, even after absorbing but a little bit. He could absorb more as he became stronger over time, and he managed to accumulate his tremendous ice-type origin energy after 1,000,000 years. Unfortunately, those energies were gifted to someone else when he arrived at the Great Star Dough Forest. He wasn't adept in battle, and so he became a source of great nutrition to the beast god, Di Qian, and a bunch of the Great Star Dough Forest's savage beasts. Just as the Ice Empress had said, if she were the one who had absorbed all that manifold mysterious ice essence back then, it was hard to say who the number one soul beast in the world would be. The Sky Dream Iceworm protected the Ice Empress from behind, so that if she absorbed too much, he could help her draw some away. However, the Ice Empress was very powerful. She already had 400,000 years of cultivation before fusing with Hu Yuhao. Even though the manifold mysterious ice essence was very potent, her origin power was much stronger than the Sky Dream Iceworm's back then. She absorbed one pillar after another. Her body became increasingly material, as if she were a real human. Hu Yuhao could feel that the Ice Empress consciousness and the tremendous power contained within the manifold mysterious ice essence gradually caused her to take a form that was completely formed with ice energy. Just as the Ice Empress had said, she could be far away from Hu Yuhao for a period of time in such a state without running into any problems. This was an improvement in her intrinsic qualities. She would possess her own fighting strength even without relying on Hu Yuhao. Of course, she was still quite far away from how she was a long time ago. The Ice Empress only began to slow down when she had absorbed 7 pillars of ice essence. Some of those energies integrated with her origin, while she began to seal the others into her origin. She was starting to exert a lot of effort after the 7th one. She could still absorb the 8th one on her own, but she couldn't absorb 2 at the same time, while the cavern became a little warmer after those pillars disappeared. The manifold mysterious ice essence wasn't so unbearable anymore. The 9th one. Thick icy bluish-green mist began to appear around the Ice Empress when she absorbed her 9th one. The icy mist would transform into drops of liquid in the air and plop to the ground. Her body was starting to tremble, and it was clear that she was reaching her limit. It was quite difficult to digest the manifold mysterious ice essence. She could only store that much with her origin power. The Ice Empress struggled to finish absorbing her 9th pillar. She took a deep breath as she glided away. Green light flickered on her body, and flourishing ice-type origin energy undulations gave everyone a feeling as if she had restored herself to her peak strength. I'm good. Yuhao, let the Snow Empress absorb some. The Ice Empress heaved a long exhale as she floated next to Hu Yuhao. She had to absorb some ice essence to fuse with her consciousness, otherwise she could explode at any moment, because she had absorbed too much energy. Hu Yuhao communicated with the Snow Lady as she flew into the air and came before the ice essence. The Snow Lady was a lot more direct than the Snow Empress. She opened her palms and grabbed a pillar with each one, and everyone could see her pulling circles of blue light into her body before they merged with her. The Snow Empress was in a different state than the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress was Hu Yuhao's martial soul, and she had only retained her consciousness. The Snow Empress was possibly the strongest spirit in the continent. Even though she didn't have soul bones to rely on, her consciousness and soul power had merged to become a spirit so that she could survive. She was much more material than the Ice Empress' pure consciousness, and she began to display strength superior to the Ice Empress once she started to absorb the manifold mysterious ice essence. The Snow Empress finished absorbing 2 pillars in less than 5 minutes. What was even more surprising was that her body, which was already relatively material, seemed to be growing. She had looked like a 13 or 14-year-old teenager before this, but now she seemed to grow a year older after absorbing the 2 pillars. She grew a little taller, and her frame seemed to become more developed. Dense ice elements spiraled around her, as if they had found an owner that they loved, and they were radiating excitement. 2 pillars, and then another 2. The Snow Empress was absorbing the manifold mysterious ice essence at a speed that was twice as fast as the Ice Empress, and was growing continuously amidst it all. 15, 16, 17, 18, she gradually grew up from a small girl. Her body became long and slender as her chest grew larger, while her long legs could be faintly seen within her white dress. The Snow Empress' stunning features became increasingly crisp and cold. She slowly left her look as the Snow Lady behind, and transformed continuously into the Snow Empress. A confused look gradually appeared in her clear dark blue eyes, before that confusion turned into bewilderment, and her eyes slowly became clear once more. The pillars of manifold mysterious ice essence disappeared continuously amidst her transformation. 13 pillars, she finally paused when she absorbed her 13th pillar. She stopped growing when she reached the state of a 20-year-old lady, but the aura of ultimate ice emanating from her body was extremely strong. Her white dress now had snow-white ribbons on it, 6 of them, and every ribbon wrapped around her in different ways that complemented her slender and exceedingly beautiful body. Hu Yuhao could clearly feel that she was different, but as for how different she had become, there seemed to be something else besides her increased strength. The Snow Empress raised her hands once more. Does she still want to absorb more? Hu Yuhao stared at her in astonishment. However, the Snow Empress didn't grab any pillars with her hands this time. Instead, she waved her hands in front of her. She first made the shape of an arch before her 10 slender fingers began to waltz in midair. Dark blue patterns rippled in the air, and they transformed continuously as they congregated to form strange runes that resembled snowflakes. The Ice Empress had her eyes closed while she absorbed the origin energy of heaven and earth, but her eyes suddenly burst open because of these glyphs. She stared in shock at the Snow Empress in front of her, and when she saw the glyphs that resembled snowflakes appear one after another in front of her, her eyes widened in excitement as tears welled up in her eyes. The Snow Empress took a good 15 minutes to draw and create those frosty runes, and in the end, a total of 7 snowflakes hovered in front of her. Go! The Snow Empress growled as the 7 snowflakes floated forward and each landed on a single pillar of ice essence. All 7 pillars glowed at the same time. The snowflakes that were originally pristine white sparkled along with the ice essence and gradually became dark blue. The auras of those dark blue shadows became stronger every time they transformed. Several minutes later, all 7 pillars crumbled at the same time, and the 7 snowflakes floated into the air as they shrank. They transformed into a bracelet of snowflakes, as it wrapped itself around the Snow Empress' left wrist. The Snow Empress slowly turned around. She still had a clean and cold look on her face, but she said plainly, "I'm good." Hu Yuhao stared at her with jaws agape and wide eyes as he said, You've recovered your memory." Hu Yuhao could feel that his connection with the Snow Empress hadn't really changed from before, and their thoughts were still connected. However, there seemed to be something else in the Snow Empress consciousness that was like a kind of will. Yes, after absorbing the manifold mysterious ice essence, the Snow Empress had probably. Yes, the Snow Empress gave a very clear answer. Hui Yuhao's eyes instantly became very complicated, a look that the Sky Dream Iceworm shared. The Snow Empress was still number 3 amongst the 10 great savage beasts after all. She was inferior only to the beast god, Di Qian, and the Evil Eye Tyrant King. The Snow Empress had recovered her memory. Would she still be willing to remain as Hui Yuhao's spirit? Just as the Ice Empress had said, she could find a new host after fusing with the ice essence. Since that was the case, she could possibly even recreate her physical body. The Snow Empress had become the Snow Lady ever since she merged with Hui Yuhao and remained by his side. She was like his daughter when she was younger and became like his little sister when she gradually grew up. She was someone that Hui Yuhao felt like he had to care for and protect in his heart. So how could he not develop an attachment after so long? Hui Yuhao stared at the Snow Lady, who was standing in front of him. She had unrivaled beauty that matched even Donga, and Hui Yuhao could feel a thread of fear in his heart. He really didn't want the Snow Empress to leave, and deep in his heart, he would rather the Snow Empress had remained as the Snow Lady. As for the Sky Dream Iceworm, the reason for his complicated emotions was a lot simpler. The Ice Empress liked the Snow Empress. The Snow Empress was his rival in love. The Ice Empress was hot and cold to him from the beginning to the end, but now that the Snow Empress had regained her memory, had his chances not dwindled even more? How could he not be dejected? The Snow Empress seemed to feel the changes in Hui Yuhao's emotions as she said plainly, "I'm the Snow Empress, and I am also the Snow Lady." Hui Yuhao felt a tremble in his heart, and his eyes were overcome with pleasant surprise. The Ice Empress transformed into a beam of green light at this moment and rushed to the Snow Empress. She opened her arms and hugged her tightly. "You're back, Snow. That's great, that's just great. You're finally back." The Snow Empress hugged the Ice Empress as well, and a faint smile finally appeared on her beautiful, ice-cold face. "I am good, Ice Empress." The Sky Dream Iceworm flew next to Hui Yuhao with a depressed expression on his face. His eyes were dreary, and Hui Yuhao turned towards him amusedly and said, "Be strong, brother Sky Dream." The Sky Dream Iceworm heaved a sigh. He didn't say anything as he flew directly towards the manifold mysterious ice essence. He wasn't like the Ice Empress or the Snow Empress, who both absorbed 2 or more at a time. Instead, he targeted a single pillar and began to absorb it. Less than half of the pillars were left inside the cavern after the 2 ladies had finished absorbing theirs. Hui Yuhao did a rough count. There were a total of 45 ice pillars inside the cavern. The Ice Empress had absorbed 9, the Snow Empress had absorbed 13, and in addition to the 7 pillars that she had sealed away with an unknown method, 29 pillars were gone and 16 were left. The Sky Dream Iceworm was evidently a lot slower at absorbing the ice essence in comparison to the Snow and the Ice Empress. Not too long ago, he had fused almost all his origin power with Hui Yuhao, and his element of ice was used as a medium for Hui Yuhao's second martial soul back then. Therefore, even though he still had some left, those elements were far inferior to the Snow and Ice Empress. If he hadn't absorbed the manifold mysterious ice essence in the past, he probably wouldn't even be worthy of absorbing any now. The 2 ladies hugged for a moment before they gradually separated. The Snow Empress eyes were full of lament, while the Ice Empress eyes were filled with elation. The Snow Empress turned around and nodded at Hui Yuhao. "Thanks for taking care of me over these years." Hui Yuhao shook his head and said, "I didn't do much." The Snow Empress flashed him a faint smile and said, "I have always been very clear about favors and grudges. I will always accompany you for allowing me to live again, and we will always follow you if you manage to break through that level. And even if you fail, I will follow you to the end of your life, and make my own plans after you leave this world." Evidently, Hui Yuhao didn't think the Snow Empress would say such things, as he stared at her with an astonished look on his face. The Snow Empress' icy features melted into a slight smile, as she suddenly raised her hands and grabbed Hui Yuhao's collar. "Eh?" Hui Yuhao stared at her in shock. The Snow Empress pulled her hands open to both sides, taking Hui Yuhao's shirt along with them and revealing his chest. Hui Yuhao was immediately embarrassed as he grabbed the Snow Empress' hands. "What are you doing, Snow Empress?" The Snow Empress' pretty eyes squinted slightly, as she stared at Hu Yuhao's chest. She muttered to herself, "Beast God Di Qian. HMPH." Hu Yuhao realized then that her attention was focused on the reverse scale on his chest. His embarrassment ebbed as he released the Snow Empress hands. The Snow Empress hands were smooth but cold, and they were like tender snow and ice that were without warmth, yet perfect and without blemish. The Snow Empress glanced at him and said, "Don't worry. With our help, once your strength reaches a certain level, you will undoubtedly be able to shake off the burden from Di Qian's reverse scale. But that's not possible now. Even though I have awakened, I will suppress my own strength. Otherwise, Di Qian will make a move against you once he realizes that I am inhabiting your body. When you manage to get your 8th ring, take a trip to the extreme north. There is a place there that is suitable for helping your cultivation breakthrough. Not even Di Qian will have an easy time killing you once you become a titled Doluo." Hu Yuhao tilted his head in acknowledgement. The Snow Empress was just that intimidating. He was the only one that was working hard to break free from the Beast God's shackles, when it was just the Ice Empress and the Sky Dream Iceworm with him. But when the Snow Empress woke up, and her words clearly meant that she wanted to help him break free. This was the difference between their strengths. The Snow Empress closed his shirt as she turned around at the Ice Empress and said, "Ice, my origin has stabilized. With help from the manifold mysterious ice essence, I can regain some of my strength from a long time ago. From now on, we will teach him the art of controlling ice." "All right," the Ice Empress nodded as she agreed. The Snow Empress turned towards Hu Yuhao and said, "Last time, you were too weak, so you couldn't have learned even if we did try to teach you. You have a certain foundation in your spiritual power at this point, and your soul power is sufficient to control relatively more powerful ice-type abilities, so you can start learning now. You have to break through to become a titled Doluo within 2 years. Afterwards, you have to work hard toward that." Hu Yuhao nodded. He suddenly realized that his belief that the Snow Empress would probably leave him after she woke up was entirely wrong. The Snow Empress awakening made him feel a lot less pressure instead, and oftentimes, it was usually the most relaxed for him when he didn't have to consider his own future. With the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress giving him pointers, if his ability to control ice could continue to improve, his overall strength would undoubtedly increase. Hu Yuhao had twin martial souls, but his main martial soul had been his spirit eyes from the beginning to the end. Even though he had invented his 3 ultimate Haodong skills, those skills had their foundations in spiritual power, and his ice-type abilities were all purely channeled through soul skills. His control over ice was achieved mainly through spiritual power to control the elements of ice. The method that the Snow Empress was speaking of clearly wasn't so simple. The Sky Dream Iceworm was relatively slower at absorbing the manifold mysterious ice essence. He managed to absorb 1 after a long while, and there were 15 pillars left. The Snow Empress said, "You should absorb some too, Star Anise." The Star Anise mysterious ice grass swayed on Hu Yuhao's shoulder and glided over. It flew next to the Sky Dream Iceworm and landed stably on the ground. It shook his head from side to side as it released circles of blue hues that encased a pillar. Light rippled as the pillar shone. The Star Anise was starting to absorb it. The Star Anise's element was also ice. Furthermore, it had been living next to the Icefire Yin-Yang Well's extreme chill ice spring over its entire life, and its attributes were not weak at all. Even though the Star Anise didn't have a very strong cultivation, it was still absorbing the ice essence more quickly than the Sky Dream Iceworm. The Ice Empress stood next to the Snow Empress. She was clearly subsidiary. Hu Yuhao had a strange feeling in his heart. The Snow Empress awakening immediately made her the leader of his 4 spirits, and she seemed like a big sister taking care of everyone else. How unfortunate for Brother Sky Dream. I wonder if he can still be together with the Ice Empress. I hope he can. The Snow Empress said, "While they're absorbing the ice essence, let me take you on a walk through the world of ice." She raised her right hand as she spoke and gently placed it on Hu Yuhao's forehead. Hu Yuhao immediately felt an extreme chill pierce into his brain, and his consciousness seemed to travel to another world in the next moment. That world was white, everything was white, but it was also very quiet, and there wasn't a single sound at all. A single droplet suddenly appeared soundlessly. It hovered in mid-air and emanated gentle water-based ripples. Water is the foundation of snow and ice. Water is the source of all things and of all life. The power of water is that it can flow into anything. The droplet immediately increased in size as she spoke. When it had become so large that even Hu Hao's consciousness had to look up, it suddenly exploded and transformed into countless water droplets that splattered in all directions. There were large and small ones, and all Hu Hao felt was moisture as they flew through the air. Yes, water could flow into everything. Only with water would there be life and nature. Yes, water was the source of all life. Part 2 end here.